Okay, so far we have a navbar and we have a jumbotron. So I guess there's going to be some stuff down here that we need to include. So I'm just going to cover in this short video media objects. So if I go into the components and then media object, we can create some media objects that look like this, for example. So let's just copy this and put it into our code. So this is going to go underneath our jumbotron. There's our media object. And let's see what that looks like. There we go. So you can see that there's a image holder here, and it stretches the whole page. You can see that at the moment my website stretches the whole page. Now you notice here that the nav bar has some sort of space in here, and you'll notice that it will have spacing there too. If I go into this mode here, notice that the jumbotron, it never reaches right to the end. The text never goes right to the end. There's always a gap. So there's gaps everywhere, which is really useful. So the first building component I want to introduce you to is a component that you ought to use to help contain elements on the page. And this is the container. So I'm going to go into the code, and what we're going to do is we're just going to build a new set of div tags. I've got to manually build them on here, and we're going to make this into a container. So we're going to use the class container from the Bootstrap tools. Container. And let's see what happens when we put inside this element here, this media object. So I'm going to select that and press tab. So it just helps me differentiate between the container and the media object in my code. Let's go back. You can see now there's a nice gap here, and when I move everything down, you can see that that gap maintains a nice little gap, and it kind of works potentially. Particularly if I were now to copy this and put another element here. Well, I've now got two elements. Excellent. And so on and so on. Let's just remove that. So we're just talking about the container. So this container, if I were to now just right click and go to view inspect, what it's going to show me, if I just now, this is my body. Inside my body I've got a container. This is the container here. So you can see that it highlights, when I highlight this piece of code, it's highlighting the container. Now you can see here that we've got this blue area, which is obviously the content, and there's a green area. There's a green area, which here it says there's padding of 15, and then we've got this orange area, which is a general margin. So this is how the container works. So there's some predefined code in Bootstrap that sets all these margins and paddings, and that's really useful. You can see that now I don't have this horrible element. I don't have a kind of there's no, excuse me. You can see now by using a container, it puts a nice gap, and it just makes things look nicer and better contained within the page or presented on the page. So with the container, I'm just going to toggle this device here so I can go into or simulate a bigger environment. So here allows me to add a custom device. So I'm just going to add a custom device, which is going to be a full HD device. I'll add that. Device name is going to be called PC HD. I'll add that. So now I've got that in place. I can close that and then go back up here. and do that. You can see now I'm simulating a PC in full HD, and you can see how this is working. I wanted to show you this because a container by default, you can see, has a maximum size of 1110. So this is what you're going to see on a bigger screen. You can see you've still got the padding of 15, and then you've still got a margin here, but that's important because in Bootstrap there's two settings with container. You can have this centralized container, or if you prefer, you can have the full width. So if you wanted this container to use the full width of the page, you just need to go back into your code and type in container fluid. So that now makes this page, or this container, stretch the whole page, but you will still find that there's a padding of 15, and that matches the padding of our navigation bar. Almost. 16. Okay. So you can see that there is some consistency, potentially some consistency here. We can change this padding later on, but you can see that we can now build some sort of consistency if we wanted some elements on this page. So without the container, there would be no width here. Now what we can also do, we can wrap this jumbotron in this container. So in fact, we can wrap this whole page in a container. So a container will help us change the look of this page. So if you wanted a more kind of central website, if I were to now take this div, remember this is the end of the container, I'm going to keep the end of the container right there, and I go back up to the top just before the navigation bar and put my container there. Now I don't want a fluid container, I wanted to make that smaller container, central container. So the container starts here, it ends there, so it wraps everything up in this container. Press save, and you can see now I now have a different website almost, or different look. So if you wanted this type of layout, well, that's how you're going to get it to work. So if I go back to responsive, or if I look at it in a mobile phone, you can still see how this nicely folds, keeps a nice border either side, and looks nice in mobile format too. Okay, so that's really an introduction there to media elements here, and more importantly, the container. Now, I suppose if you wanted to, we could move that container start to just here. So it starts here and just uses the jumbotron and this media element, and that will then make obviously the nav bar stay nice and full, but everything else will then be centralized. So that's another view you might want to develop